My banking app screamed access denied, and then I learned my own parents had filed a fake power of attorney to siphon $480,000 from my trust. Not love, not protection, just a heist with bedtime voices. Tell me, would you go to the bank or call police first right now? If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments. And I will give you a heart. Tuesday morning, Chicago, 8:12 a.m., coffee still steaming, and I'm standing in my kitchen like a normal human being until my phone turns into a judge and slams down one ugly sentence in a red banner. Access denied. Not try again, not we sent a code, just a cold little no, like I'd been fired from my own life. I blinked and then I laughed once. That stupid laugh you do when your brain refuses to accept reality, and then I tried again, thumb hovering over the app like maybe I'd fat-fingered my entire existence. Face ID.
Fail.
Passcode.
Fail. Close app.
Open app. Same red line. Now here's the thing that made it terrifying, not annoying. This wasn't some little checking account with $50 and a coupon for Arby's. This was my trust account. The one with layers. The one that was supposed to be boring and locked down and safe. The one my grandparents set up with rules and extra verification and the kind of paperwork that makes bankers speak softly and offer you water. My trust had just under $500,000 in it, and I used Harborline Bank for one reason. They sold security like it was a religion. And then my phone told me I was a stranger. I went straight to the desktop site, because old-school habits die hard, especially if you've lived long enough to remember when banks had tellers who knew your name and when a signature actually meant something. Same result. Access denied. I stood there, one hand gripping my phone, the other pressed flat on the counter, like I could physically keep the room from tilting, and then my email chimed. Security notification from Harborline. Your account access has been updated. No details. No helpful if this wasn't you link. Just a bland sentence with the emotional warmth of a parking ticket. And my stomach did that drop, the one you get when you realize the problem isn't a glitch, it's a decision somebody made about you. I didn't call customer service first. I know how long those calls take, and I know how those calls end. We're escalating this and then nothing. I called my parents. Yes, I know. Some of you already have that look on your face like, why would you call the people who raised you like they're still safe? But when your whole life has been built on the idea that family is a safety net, you grab the net before you realize it's full of holes. My dad answered on the second ring, calm as a man ordering a sandwich.
Morning, he said.
Not, are you okay? Not, what's wrong? Just morning, like he'd been waiting beside the phone. I said, I'm locked out of my trust. My app says access denied. There was a pause, and it wasn't confusion. It was calculation. Like he was choosing which version of the truth would hurt me least while still getting what he wanted. We had to act, he said, evenly, and then he added the words that should have been a siren in my head. Family first. My stomach tightened like someone cinched a belt. What did you do? I asked, and then my mom's voice slid onto the line like she'd been standing right there, already dressed for war. You're too emotional, she said. You've been spiraling. We're managing it now. The rage came up so fast it surprised me, but I swallowed it because I've learned something about people like this. If you give them an emotional reaction, they'll frame it as proof you're unstable, and then they'll call themselves concerned. So I said, calm. I'm not spiraling. You locked me out of my own account. My mom gave this little laugh, like I'd told a joke at the dinner table. It's not your account, she said. It's family money. It was set aside to be used responsibly. And then my sister, Paige, chimed in, bright and smug, like the family spokesperson for hypocrisy. Stop being dramatic, she said. Dad's protecting you from yourself. Let me ask you something right now, because I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever been in a situation where you're the only person taking reality seriously, and everyone else is acting like you're crazy for noticing? That's what it felt like. Like I was standing in the daylight, and they were insisting the sun was off. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't ask what lie they'd told themselves to justify it. I just said, okay. And then I said, I'm going to the bank. My dad's tone sharpened, just a fraction, like the mask slipped for a second. Don't cause a scene, he warned. I ended the call without answering, and then I moved like my body had decided it was done being polite.
Keys. Coat.
Phone charger. I walked out with my coffee, still sitting there, abandoned like the version of my life that used to trust people. 10 minutes later, I'm in the Harborline branch on Oak Street, the kind of place with soft lighting and polished counters designed to make money feel safe. And I'm telling you, it's almost comical how banks create this environment like problems can't exist there, like fraud and betrayal bounce off the glass. A greeter smiled at me. How can I help today? She asked, sweet as frosting. I said, I'm locked out of my account. A trust account. I need someone who can see access changes. She took one look at my face, and her smile switched from customer service to concern. Within a minute, I'm seated in a small office across from a banker with a nameplate, Adrian Holt.
Calm eyes.
The kind of calm you get when you've watched rich families tear each other apart, and you've learned not to flinch. Can I see your ID? He asked. I slid my driver's license across the desk like it was evidence, because it was. He typed, clicked, waited for the screen to load, and then he stopped typing. Not a slow system pause. A stillness. The kind that tells you the next sentence changes your day. He looked up at me, and his voice went careful. Ms. Lane, he said, your online access has been disabled because the account is currently under a power of attorney.
My mouth went dry.
Under what? I asked, even though I'd heard the words. I just didn't want them to be real. A power of attorney, he repeated. It was added yesterday. Yesterday. Not weeks ago. Not during a confusion. Yesterday.
I didn't add anything, I said.
He nodded like he believed me and hated that he believed me. He clicked again, eyes scanning lines left to right, and then he asked, without looking up, do you have any reason your parents would be listed as your legal agent? My throat tightened. They're not my legal agent, I said. They shouldn't be on anything. He finally looked at me and said, the document on file grants full authority over disbursements and access. It names your father as agent. And then he hesitated, just long enough to let me feel the punch. He can authorize transfers, he added, and he did. I felt my heart do that hard, angry thump like it wanted out of my chest. He already did? I asked. Adrian clicked into another pane and lowered his voice like he didn't want the glass walls to carry it. There's an outgoing transfer scheduled, he said. Large. My hands went cold. How large? I asked. He read it slowly, like the number had weight. 461,000, he said. My vision narrowed. That is basically everything. When does it clear? I asked. He glanced at a clock on his monitor. Today, he said. Noon. That's when my brain split into two tracks at once. One track screaming, and the other track calculating. Because panic feels good for about 3 seconds, and then it becomes useless. I leaned forward, kept my voice steady, and said, stop it. Adrian's jaw tightened. I can't stop it without opening a fraud case, he said. And that means freezing the account so no one, including you, can move funds until it's investigated. I didn't even hesitate. Freeze it, I said. His eyebrows lifted, just slightly, like he didn't hear that often. Most people beg for access. I wanted a locked door more than I wanted a key, because if my father had the key, then the house wasn't mine anymore. Adrian turned his monitor back, typed fast, checked boxes, and then he looked at me and said, "Before I submit, I need you to state clearly, you did not sign this power of attorney and you did not authorize your father." I said, "I did not sign it. I did not authorize it." He clicked submit. A red banner appeared. Fraud hold initiated. Disbursement suspended. And I swear I could breathe again by half an inch. Then he clicked into the attachments and I saw the thing that made the whole plot go from financial control to full-on character assassination. A physician capacity letter. That's right. A letter saying I was impaired and couldn't manage my finances. Adrian's cursor hovered like he didn't want to open it in front of me. And then he did. He read the top line, and then he asked me, very carefully, "Ms. Lane, were you hospitalized yesterday?" "No," I said. "I was at work all day." He didn't react like I'd offended him. He reacted like he'd just stepped into a different category of crime. "Okay," he said quietly, "then that letter is either incorrect or provided under false pretenses." He flipped back to the audit trail and said, "The record shows the power of attorney was accepted in person at this branch." "In person?" I repeated. "That's impossible." He didn't argue. He just turned the screen toward me, and there it was, a scanned document with my name and a signature that looked like mine if you squinted and didn't care about truth. "And right then, right in the middle of all this, I need you to do something for me because I want to know who I'm sitting with today. Where are you watching from? What state, what city, what little corner of the world are you in right now? And have you ever had a family member try to rewrite reality, like it's their hobby? Tell me, because I promise you, what happened next is exactly why so many people stay quiet until it's too late." Adrian clicked into the document details and said, "There's a fax header on the physician letter." He angled the screen, and the originating fax number is interesting. It was a regular number, not a hospital line, not a clinic. And the last 4 digits hit me like a slap. My mother's office number. The one I've had memorized since I was a teenager because she made sure everyone could reach her, because control loves convenience. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just heard my own voice come out flat and cold. "That's my mother." Adrian leaned back slightly, like he'd just watched the pieces lock into place. "Okay," he said. "Then we treat this as coordinated." And that word coordinated is the one that should scare you, because it means this wasn't a moment of fear, it was a plan. He opened another pane and said, "According to our notes, your father presented the POA, the capacity letter, and a copy of your ID." "A copy of my ID?" I repeated, because I suddenly remembered my mom's family records drawer, the one she called organized, the one that always felt like a vault I wasn't allowed to own. Adrian pulled up the uploaded license image, and it wasn't the ID on his desk. It was my old one, slightly blurred, like it had been scanned at home. "Do you still have this license?" he asked. "No," I said. "I replaced it last year." He nodded, building his timeline, and then he stood. "I'm escalating this to the branch manager and to trust compliance," he said. "We also need to request lobby camera footage from yesterday's appointment." "Do it," I said. He stepped out. Through the glass, I watched him speak to a woman in a charcoal blazer, and she didn't smile, didn't nod politely, didn't do the whole "thank you for your patience" song. She walked like this was now an incident, not a customer issue. She entered and said, "Ms. Lane, I'm Vanessa Grant, branch manager." She looked at my ID, looked at the screen, and her voice went direct. "You are physically here, alert, oriented, and disputing this power of attorney. Correct?" "Correct," I said. She nodded once. "Then we're going to secure the fraud hold, preserve the document trail, verify the notary independently, and pull the footage," she said. "And if the footage shows someone impersonated you, we're calling law enforcement. Not later. Today." And in that moment, With my parents still thinking they'd scared me into obedience, I realized the real fight wasn't just about money. It was about who gets to define you on paper. Because if they could label me unstable, they could turn every protest into proof, every boundary into paranoia, and every attempt to protect myself into a reason to control me harder. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression tightened. "Security is loading the footage now," she said. "And there's one more thing you need to understand before we watch it." She leaned in slightly and lowered her voice. "If your parents went this far," she said, "they didn't come alone." Vanessa said, "If your parents went this far, they didn't come alone." And then she turned toward the glass wall like she could already see the shape of the lie walking around in the lobby. Adrian came back in with that look bankers get when the problem stops being account access and becomes, "We're about to be subpoenaed." He set a slim folder on the desk, and he didn't slide it to me like normal paperwork. He placed it like evidence. "These are the intake notes from yesterday," he said, and then Vanessa added, "And we're pulling the video right now." I sat there in that too-soft chair, staring at my own ID on the desk like it was the last honest thing left in the room, and I tried to keep my face neutral because I could feel myself wanting to shake, and I didn't want anyone in that building to look at me and think emotional equals unreliable. That's the first lesson, by the way, especially for anybody who has dealt with controlling family members. Your feelings are real, but your paper trail is what saves you. Vanessa's phone buzzed again, and then a security specialist walked in with a laptop like we were about to watch game film, except the sport was my life. He introduced himself, quick, professional, and then he plugged into their internal system, and a grid of camera angles popped up, time-stamped, sterile, and suddenly my stomach tightened because there's something uniquely terrifying about seeing your life reduced to surveillance footage. Vanessa pointed at the screen. "Yesterday. Desk 12. Appointment window," she said, and then the specialist clicked and the lobby view loaded, grainy from above, people drifting in and out like ghosts in business casual. For a second it was nothing, just customers and tellers and that fake comm banks are famous for, and then the timestamp hit the exact window. And then there they were. My father, standing at the counter with a folder tucked under his arm like he was just renewing a certificate of deposit. My mother beside him, posture perfect, chin slightly lifted, like she was there to supervise the world. And sitting in a chair angled toward the banker was a woman with her hair pulled back, wearing a mask and oversized sunglasses. My throat tightened so hard it felt like my body was trying to swallow a scream. Vanessa leaned closer to the screen and said, "Is that you?" I stared until my eyes burned. The build was similar, the posture was similar, but something was off, and it wasn't just the disguise. It was the stiffness, the way the woman held herself like she was bracing for being caught. And then, right on cue, she lifted her hand to sign something on the counter, and as she did, her sleeve rode up for half a second, and a small tattoo flashed near her wrist. A clean, simple mark, quick as lightning. I felt the room go cold inside my skin. "That's not me," I said, and I heard my voice come out lower than I expected, steady, almost eerie. "I don't have a tattoo." Adrian didn't react like he was surprised. He reacted like he'd been hoping the footage would give him permission to act without hesitation. Vanessa's face didn't soften with sympathy. It sharpened with certainty. "Then your parents brought someone into this bank pretending to be you," she said, and the security specialist paused the footage and zoomed in, as much as the system allowed. The face stayed indistinct, but my father's didn't. My mother's didn't. Their body language was unmistakable. Confident, practiced, like they'd done this kind of thing before in other ways, just not this publicly. And then Vanessa said the sentence that made my stomach drop and settle at the same time, because it meant the room was finally taking the threat seriously. "We're past internal policy now," she said. "We're calling law enforcement. Now, if you've never had to involve police in a family matter, let me tell you what it feels like. It feels like admitting the thing you didn't want to admit, that the people who taught you right from wrong are capable of wrong that's organized. It's not just heartbreak. It's disorientation. Like the moral map you grew up with just got torn up. Vanessa dialed, spoke calmly, and said she needed to report suspected identity fraud and attempted financial exploitation tied to a power of attorney, and she didn't sugarcoat the suspects. The beneficiary's parents, she said. And then she hung up, and for a moment the office was quiet except for the soft hum of that laptop, and I realized my hands were cold because I'd been clenching them so hard my fingers hurt. Adrian slid another screen toward me. "While we wait," he said, "I need to document additional attempts." He clicked into the account log, and there it was, like a slap. User action added as authorized contact yesterday. Name my mother. Vanessa's mouth tightened. They tried to add a trusted contact while adding the POA, she said. That's not accidental. That's a takeover plan. Adrian nodded. And there's a note from the employee who processed the paperwork, he said, and he read it quietly, like he hated the words even existing on their system. Client appeared distressed. Father and mother present. Requested immediate lockout to prevent beneficiary from interfering. I felt my skin go hot and cold at once. Prevent beneficiary from interfering. Do you hear the language? They turned me into the problem inside my own account. That's gaslighting with a keyboard. Vanessa asked me, "Do you have any proof you were at work yesterday?" And I didn't give her a story. I gave her what systems respect. I pulled up my calendar, my badge entry log, the meeting invite with timestamps, and Adrian copied it all. Good, Vanessa said. We build the timeline. We document the chain. And then, because my parents are who they are, my phone buzzed like it couldn't stand being quiet. Email notification from Harborline. Your address on file has been updated. I stared at it for a second, not believing it, and then Vanessa's eyes snapped to my screen and she said, "Sharp. That should not be possible." Adrian's hands moved fast over his keyboard, and then he stopped, and his voice went careful again. The fraud hold froze disbursements and transfers, he said, but settings changes can sometimes slip through in the first minute before everything propagates. Vanessa leaned in. To what address? She asked, and Adrian read it off. My parents' address. Of course it was. Vanessa's face went cold in a way that made me feel weirdly safe, like I'd finally found a grown-up in the room. They're redirecting paper notices, she said. Not because they need mail, because they need silence. Adrian reversed the change, and then Vanessa placed a restriction so address updates required in-person verification only. I signed. Slowly. Deliberately. Like every letter was me reclaiming territory. And then the officers arrived, not with sirens, not with drama. Just that quiet authority that makes a bank suddenly feel less like a showroom and more like a courtroom. Vanessa met them, spoke low, showed them the footage, and then she brought them into the office. This is the beneficiary, she said. She's disputing the POA. We have footage of the parents presenting documents with an impersonator. The older officer introduced himself as Officer Hayes. His partner, Officer Monroe, pulled out a notebook immediately, like she'd already decided this was going to be detailed. Hayes looked at me and said, "Ma'am, tell me in your own words what happened this morning." I kept it tight. Access denied. Phone call. Father admitted family first. POA discovered. Transfer scheduled for noon. Doctor letter I've never seen. Fax header tied to my mother. Impersonator on camera. Hayes nodded slowly, and then he asked the most important question in the most normal tone, like he was ordering coffee. Do you have any messages from your parents that confirm they did this? I did something I hadn't wanted to do, because I didn't want to fight in writing, but I needed the record. I texted my father. Why am I locked out of my trust? And then 3 dots appeared instantly like he'd been waiting to pounce. His reply popped up. We had to act. Family first. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. I didn't answer. I turned the screen toward Hayes. He read it, looked up at Vanessa, and said, "Preserve that." Screenshot, email, timestamp. Vanessa nodded. "Already done," she said, and the way she said it told me she'd seen families like mine try this trick before. Monroe asked me, "Do your parents have access to your ID documents?" And I thought of my mother's organized drawer of family records, and I said, "Yes. They've kept copies for years." Hayes exhaled through his nose. "Okay," he said quietly. "So we're looking at identity fraud, forgery, attempted theft, possibly notary fraud." Those words landed heavy, not because they were new, but because hearing them out loud from someone in uniform makes it official, and official changes everything. Vanessa handed them the case number for the bank's fraud hold. Adrian printed the ledger. "2 transfers went out yesterday," he said. "Not the full amount. Test transfers." "Amounts?" Monroe asked. 5,000 and 10,000, Adrian said, and my stomach tightened like it wanted to fold in half. "To where?" I asked, and Adrian clicked into recipient details, and then his face went still again, like the system had just shown him the arrogance behind the plan. "It went to a new checking account opened yesterday," he said. "At this branch." Vanessa's voice turned sharp. "A household account," she said, reading the label. "Temporary management while beneficiary is incapacitated." Hayes looked at me and said, "Do you live with them?"
"No," I said.
"Do they pay your bills?" "No," I said again. Monroe's pen moved fast. And then my phone buzzed again, and this time it was a text from my mother. "If you keep fighting us, we'll tell the bank you're unstable and have you put on a guardianship hold." I stared at it until it stopped feeling real, and then I handed it to Monroe. She read it once, and her expression went flat in a way that made my blood run colder than fear. "Okay," she said quietly. "Now we're talking coercion." Hayes's radio crackled. He listened, and then he looked at me with a careful steadiness. "Your parents just requested a welfare check," he said. "They told dispatch you're mentally unstable and financially vulnerable." And right then, sitting in that glass office with my own parents trying to brand me from a distance, I realized the money was only half the game. The other half was control of the story, because if they could convince the system I was unstable, then every boundary I set would look like proof, and every protest would be spun into "See, she's spiraling." And Vanessa leaned in and said, "We can add an emergency passphrase to your accounts, lock all changes behind in-person verification, and flag any attempted POA as automatic escalation." And I said, "Do it." And then the front door chime sounded, 2 short tones, and I didn't even have to look up because I heard my father's voice cut through the lobby like he owned the air. "She's here. I know she's here. I want access to her account right now." And Vanessa's jaw tightened as Officer Hayes shifted his stance, and Adrian whispered, barely audible, "They came back." And in that second I knew the next move wasn't going to be paperwork. It was going to be a public performance designed to make me look like the problem while they played the heroes. And I swear, the moment I heard my mother's soft, sweet voice behind him, I understood exactly how far they were willing to go to win. The second I heard my father's voice in the lobby, the air in that little glass office changed, like the oxygen got more expensive. Vanessa didn't panic. She didn't flinch. She just turned her head slightly toward the door and said low, "Did you tell them you were coming here?" And I whispered back, "No." And Officer Hayes's expression tightened in a way that told me he'd already seen this movie. Abusers love a public stage. Adrian's fingers hovered over the keyboard like he was ready to slam a lock on the entire banking system if he had to, and Officer Monroe stepped closer to the glass wall so she could see the lobby without turning it into a spectacle. Then my mother's voice floated in, Sweet and loud enough to be heard by strangers, the exact tone you use when you want witnesses. "Please," she said, "our daughter is confused.
She's paranoid."
She thinks we're stealing. We're trying to protect her."
Protect.
That word always shows up at the crime scene, doesn't it, like a fake badge? Vanessa looked at me once and said, "Stay seated," not because she wanted to control me, but because she wanted the record to show I wasn't the one escalating. And then she walked out like a manager who's about to shut down a situation with policy, not feelings. Through the glass, I watched her meet them near the polished counter. My father was standing too close to the teller line, shoulders squared, folder in hand like he was holding the law itself. My mother stood beside him with that calm posture she uses when she's about to call you emotional in front of people. And behind them, half a step back like she wanted to be seen but not blamed, was my sister Paige, phone in her hand at chest level like she was already filming a rescue narrative. My father said it again, louder. "I have power of attorney. She's not competent. I want access to her account right now." Vanessa's voice stayed firm and clean. "Sir," she said, "that power of attorney is under dispute. The account is under a fraud hold. You will not be transacting today." My mother tilted her head and put on her softest face. "We're begging you," she said. "She's unwell. She's been spiraling. She's vulnerable to scammers." And I almost laughed because the scammers were standing right there holding a folder. Officer Monroe stepped out beside Vanessa and the entire atmosphere changed instantly because uniforms do what tears can't. My father's face shifted the moment he saw them. Not fear, more like outrage that the world wasn't automatically siding with him. "Why are police here?" he demanded, like he owned the concept of authority. Monroe didn't argue. She didn't ask him to calm down. She said, flat and clear, "Because disputed legal paperwork was submitted here yesterday and attempted transfers were initiated from a trust account without the beneficiary's authorization." My father scoffed and tried to smile like he was the reasonable one. "She authorized it," he snapped. "She's just regretting it now. She doesn't remember things when she's upset." That line right there is a classic. If you've ever dealt with family betrayal, you've heard some version of it. You're not disagreeing, you're forgetting. You're not setting boundaries, you're confused. You're not exposing them, you're unstable. Officer Hayes stepped forward, and his voice turned cold enough to cut. "Sir," he said, "we have security footage showing you and your wife presenting documents with an individual impersonating your daughter." My father blinked once, tiny, and then he recovered fast, way too fast. "That was her," he insisted. "She wears masks. She gets dramatic. She's not well." Vanessa didn't let him own the narrative. "We saw a wrist tattoo," she said sharply. "Our customer has no tattoo." And that's when I saw my sister's body betray her for half a second. Paige's jaw tightened and her phone dipped a fraction, like her hand suddenly didn't trust itself. Monroe saw it too. She turned her head toward my sister and said, calm, "Ma'am, what's your name?" My sister lifted her chin. "Paige," she said, offended like she was being inconvenienced. Monroe nodded once, like she was checking a box. "Paige," she repeated, "do you have a tattoo on your inner wrist?" My sister's eyes widened just a hair, and then she snapped, "That's ridiculous." And my father immediately stepped in loud, trying to drown the question in dominance. "She is not answering that," he barked. "You're harassing my family." Hayes didn't move. "You walked into a bank and attempted to drain an account you don't own," he said. "Answering questions is the least of your problem right now." My mother put a hand on my father's arm and whispered something urgent, but her eyes were scanning the lobby, checking who was watching, because people like her care more about witnesses than truth. Vanessa leaned toward Monroe and said something I couldn't hear. Then Monroe nodded and said, We're moving this to a formal report. Bank security. Preserve the footage and the original documents with chain of custody. And just as my father opened his mouth to perform the next act, my phone buzzed in my lap like it wanted to join the fight. Blocked number. My mother calling. I didn't answer. Then a text popped up from her, and I swear it was like she couldn't stop herself from writing the threat down because she needed me to feel it. If you keep fighting us, we'll tell them you're unstable and push guardianship. I handed the phone to Officer Monroe through the crack in the glass office door, without saying a word. She read it, and her face went blank in that professional way that means, okay, now it's documented. Thank you, she said quietly, and then she turned and looked at my mother like she was looking at a person who just stepped from manipulation into criminal intimidation. You wrote this? Monroe asked. My mother's smile tightened, and she did what she always does when confronted. She reframed it as love.
We're scared, she said.
We're trying to protect her. Hayes's voice was flat. A welfare check filed at the same time as a contested fraud investigation looks retaliatory, he said. And then Vanessa did something that snapped my attention like a pattern interrupt. She didn't argue with them anymore. She stopped treating them like customers. Sir, ma'am, she said, you are no longer welcome in this branch. Step away from the counter. My father's face twisted. You can't bar us, he said. We have legal paperwork. Vanessa's eyes didn't blink. That paperwork is under fraud hold, she replied. And we have video of an impersonation at our desk. That ends the conversation. That's when my father did the nastiest thing he could do in a public place because he knew it would land even if it wasn't relevant. He leaned toward Hayes and hissed, loud enough to make nearby customers go still. You want proof she's mentally unwell? She tried to hurt herself last year. Ask her. The lobby went quiet like someone turned the volume down on the whole bank. And right there, I felt that old childhood panic. The one where your parents can take something vulnerable and use it like a weapon, and it hits you not in your mind, but in your spine. Monroe snapped her head up. That is private medical information, she said sharply. And you are not authorized to disclose it in public as a tactic. My father laughed like he was above rules. I'm her father, he said. I can say whatever I want. Hayes didn't raise his voice, but his tone hardened. Not here, he said. Not like this. And inside the glass office, Adrian moved fast again, clicking into a secure call line. He looked at Vanessa and said, Trust compliance is on speaker, and Vanessa nodded. Put it on. A woman's voice came through the speaker, calm, clipped, the kind of calm you hear from people who deal with lawsuits for breakfast. This is Marissa Vaughn. Trust compliance, she said. I need a precise answer. Did you sign any power of attorney document in the last 30 days authorizing your father? No, I said. I did not. There was a brief pause, and then Marissa dropped the piece that made my stomach turn cold in a new way. The POA file uploaded yesterday contains embedded edit history, she said. It shows the document was generated from a consumer template on a home computer, not a law office system. Vanessa's eyes widened. Monroe's pen froze midair. And Marissa continued. The metadata includes an author label. I swallowed. What label? I asked. Marissa said, evenly, it reads, Page Laptop. I swear time slowed, because outside that glass wall, my sister's voice rose suddenly, sharp and too fast. That's not even, she snapped, and her body shifted like it wanted to run while her mouth wanted to fight. Hayes opened the office door just enough and called out firm, Paige Carter. My sister froze mid-step. My father tried to block her, stepping in front of her like a shield. You're not speaking to her, he said. This is harassment. Monroe stepped closer, not aggressive, just unavoidable, and said, Ma'am, I'm going to ask you directly. Were you the person seated at desk 12 yesterday, wearing a mask and sunglasses? Paige laughed high and brittle. No, she said, too quick. Monroe nodded, once like she'd expected that. Okay, she replied. Then I'll ask something simpler. Do you have a small tattoo on your inner wrist? Paige's eyes flicked down for half a second before she forced them back up.
No, she said.
And my father barked. We're leaving. Like volume could erase evidence. Vanessa's security officer stepped into their path. You've been trespassed, he said. You need to exit. My father shoved past him with his shoulder, not enough to knock him over, just enough to assert dominance, and Hayes's voice changed instantly. Sir, stop, he ordered, and he guided my father back with controlled force. Customers were staring now because my parents had wanted witnesses, and congratulations, they got them. And then my sister did exactly what liars do when the story collapses. She tried to disappear. She turned sharply toward the door, phone still in her hand, and as she moved, her sleeve slid up for just 1 second. And there it was.
The tattoo. Small.
Distinct. In the exact place the footage showed. Monroe didn't grab her. She didn't need to. She simply said, loud enough for the cameras and the lobby to catch it clean. There it is. Paige froze like someone hit pause. Vanessa's voice cut in like a gavel. That matches the footage, she said. My father's had snapped toward my sister, eyes wide, not angry at what she'd done, furious that she'd been sloppy. Hayes looked at Monroe. Monroe nodded once, and then Monroe said, calm but deadly, Paige, you can leave right now and we request an interview through a detective, or you can stay and give a statement voluntarily, but understand this. The bank has video, the bank has audit logs, and trust compliance just tied the document metadata to your device. My mother stepped forward, voice sharp. Paige, don't say anything, and my father barked, we're all leaving, and Hayes said, you're not leaving until we identify everyone involved in an active fraud investigation. And in that moment, with my family's mask slipping in front of strangers, I realized the next battle wasn't just stopping the money. It was stopping the next move they were already lining up behind the scenes, because people like this don't quit when they're exposed, they pivot, and as the lobby doors shut behind them and Vanessa locked eyes with me through the glass, she said quietly, now they're going to try the court route, and they're going to do it fast. Vanessa said, now they're going to try the court route, and they're going to do it fast. And the way she said fast wasn't dramatic, it was operational, like she'd watched people weaponize paperwork the way other people weaponize fists. The lobby had barely exhaled after my parents got marched out, and already the bank was shifting into a different mode, the kind where the smiles disappear, and everyone starts talking in timestamps. Adrian swiveled his monitor toward Vanessa and Officer Hayes, and he started reading out actions like he was narrating a crime scene timeline, because that's what this was now. Fraud hold is active, he said. Transfer canceled. Address change reversed. Trusted contact restrictions updated. 2 test transfers initiated yesterday are flagged, and our clawback process is underway pending confirmation from compliance and receiving bank. Then Vanessa leaned in and tapped the screen with a pen like she was underlining the real threat. The money is paused, she said. But the narrative is not. Your parents already tried to label you incompetent. Next step is they try to make that label official. Officer Monroe's notebook was full now, lines and arrows and case numbers, and she asked me, do you have any medical history they could twist into a guardianship claim? That question hit in a place deeper than anger, because it wasn't about whether I was okay, it was about whether my privacy could be weaponized. I didn't answer with a confession, I answered with the truth that matters in these situations. They will twist anything, I said. They don't need truth. They need something that sounds official. Vanessa nodded once hard. Exactly, she said. And that's why we build the record, so clean the court can smell the lie. Then she asked me something that felt small but wasn't. Do your parents have access to your email? She asked. Your phone plan? Your Apple ID? Any shared accounts? Because that's the other lesson, and I need you to hear me on this. When someone tries to steal your money, they don't start with the money. They start with the doors around it. I thought of my mother insisting on helping me set up accounts years ago, her habit of knowing passwords she should know, her obsession with family organization. I don't know, I admitted, and I hated that answer because it meant the battlefield was bigger than the bank. Adrian clicked into another panel and said, "We need to lock down communication channels." He turned to me. "Do you want an account passphrase?" Not a pin. A phrase. Something only you know. I said yes, and I chose something that felt like a private joke between me and reality because if they turned my life into a courtroom, I wanted at least one thing that belonged to me. Adrian typed it in, then added a note. Any request without passphrase escalates to branch manager and trust compliance. Vanessa added another restriction. No POA accepted without trust compliance review plus in-person appearance by me plus independent attorney verification. She said it the way you say a sentence that becomes a wall. Officer Hayes asked Vanessa for copies of the documents, and she didn't hand him loose paper like it was a casual complaint. She handed him a sealed packet like she was protecting chain of custody with her whole career. Audit trail, upload timestamps, employee ID, appointment record, video stills, device fingerprint notes from compliance, she said, listing it out, and Hayes nodded like he'd finally found the kind of evidence that doesn't turn into a he said, she said circus. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed again, and I felt my whole body tense, because once you've been attacked through a screen, every vibration starts to feel like the next punch. Adrian glanced at the top of my screen and said quietly, "That's a bank email?" I read it, and my stomach dropped in a more surgical way than before. Harborline, your contact preferences have been updated. Vanessa's head snapped up. Under fraud hold? She asked, and Adrian's fingers were already moving. There may have been another brief propagation window, he said, voice tight. Let me check. He clicked into the preferences log, scanned it, and then his expression changed into something I can only describe as irritated disbelief. They attempted to add a new phone number for two-factor, he said. They didn't succeed. It shows as failed. Failed because Adrian had already started locking things down. Failed because the bank was finally moving faster than my parents. But the fact they tried it all was the message. Vanessa said it out loud because she wanted it on record. They're attempting to intercept your account recovery path, she said. That's escalation. Hayes's radio crackled again. He listened and then he said, Dispatch is logging the welfare check request as potentially retaliatory due to this active investigation. I should have felt relief. I didn't, because I know my family. When control slips, they don't retreat. They improvise. They become louder, more public, more righteous, because shame is their weapon and volume is their shield. Vanessa looked at me and asked, Do you feel safe going home? I said, I'm not afraid of my neighborhood. And then I looked down at the sealed packet and added, I'm afraid of paperwork showing up at my door. Because that's the thing nobody tells you until you live it. Physical safety is one problem, administrative violence is another. They can hurt you without touching you. They can freeze your life with forms. Hayes said, We can't stop them from filing something in court. And then he pointed at the bank packet. But we can make sure the first thing a judge sees isn't their story. It's this. Vanessa nodded. Our legal team can draft a verification letter today stating the POA is disputed, that we have video of an impersonator, and that the account is under fraud investigation, she said. If they try an emergency petition, their concern gets met with documented evidence. And then, because the universe has a sixth sense of timing, Adrian's system chimed, and he stared at his screen for one long beat before he spoke. There's a new incoming item, he said. Not a transfer. A document upload request. Vanessa leaned in. From who? She asked. Adrian swallowed. From a fax line, he said. An incoming guardianship inquiry packet request. It's marked urgent. Officer Monroe's pen stopped like it hit a wall. They're already moving, she said. Hayes looked at me and asked, Did your parents threaten guardianship in writing? And Monroe held up my phone without waiting for my answer because she had already photographed the text. Vanessa's face didn't change, but her voice did. It went from manager to incident commander. Lock down all inbound legal processing on this account, she told Adrian. No automatic acceptance. Everything routes to trust compliance and legal. Adrian nodded and typed like his life depended on it. Vanessa looked at Hayes. This is exactly why we trespass them, she said. They're trying to create pressure and confusion. They want an employee to make a helpful mistake. Hayes turned to me. Listen carefully, he said. If officers show up for a welfare check, be calm, be direct, and ask them to document your orientation and your statement that you are disputing fraud. Don't argue about your parents. Stick to facts. Monroe added, and do not let anyone talk you into going anywhere without clarity. A welfare check is not a court order. That right there is the educational piece I wish someone had drilled into my skull years ago. People assume a welfare check means you have to comply, like you're under arrest. You don't. You can be respectful without surrendering control. Vanessa slid a new form toward me. We're also issuing new online credentials, she said. New device tokens, new security questions, new two-factor that only you control. And then she paused and said, I'm going to recommend something you may not want to hear. I looked up. Say it, I said. She didn't soften it. You need to separate your digital life from your family, she said. New email address. New phone plan, if it's shared. Freeze your credit. Secure your medical portals. Because the capacity letter tells me they're not just stealing funds, they're building a case to control you. Officer Monroe nodded. And pull a credit report, she said. If they open a household account at this branch, they may have opened other things elsewhere. That hit me in a different way because it reminded me that this wasn't spontaneous. This was logistical. It required copies of my ID, some knowledge of my history, and the kind of confidence that comes from practicing control for years. I said, they've always been like this, and I didn't mean dramatic abuse. I meant the quiet kind. The way my mother would answer questions directed at me, the way my father would say we when he meant I, the way they treated my adulthood like a phase they could override. Vanessa watched my face and said, Then you already know their next move. And I nodded because I did. Their next move was to turn the community against me, to call relatives, to frame me as ungrateful, to say I was unstable, to make me look like the villain for defending myself. That's the hypocrisy that makes people rage in the comment section, and I want you to tell me right now because I'm curious where your gut lands. If your parents tried to drain your money for your own good, would you cut them off completely? Or would you keep them at arm's length with strict rules? Because I know what I thought I would do, and I know what I actually did when the bank doors chimed again and Adrian said, voice tight, we have an inbound call requesting confirmation of the POA validity, and Vanessa snatched the handset like she could smell my father's performance through the receiver, and she said, this is Elaine Grant, branch manager. The POA is under dispute, and this line is being documented. And then she covered the receiver and looked at me with eyes that didn't blink. They're not done, she whispered. They're trying to shop your story to anyone who will listen. And just as she said it, my phone lit up with a new voicemail notification from an unknown number, and the transcription preview popped up on my screen like a threat printed in ink. You are destroying this family, and you will regret it. And I didn't even have to guess whose voice it was, because I could hear the smile behind the words, and Vanessa leaned closer and said, play it. And Monroe said, "On speaker." And in that moment, I realized the next escalation wasn't going to be at the bank. It was going to be at my front door, in my workplace, in my reputation, because once people like this lose access to your money, they come for your identity next. Vanessa leaned over the desk like she was about to interrogate the universe. Monroe clicked her pen open. Hayes angled his body toward the door like he was anticipating a scene, and Adrian said quietly, "If you play that voicemail, it becomes evidence." And I said, "Good," because at that point I didn't want peace. I wanted a record that could survive a courtroom. I tapped play, turned the volume up, and the office filled with my father's voice, low and controlled. The tone he uses when he's pretending to be calm, but he's actually threatening you with a smile. "You are destroying this family," the voicemail said, "and you will regret it." Vanessa's eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She just nodded once like, "There it is, the real language." And Monroe scribbled the timestamp like she was pinning a butterfly to a board. Hayes said, "Save it. Don't delete anything." And I didn't need the reminder because when your parents try to steal your life, you become the kind of person who screenshots everything like it's oxygen. Vanessa asked, "Do you have any more messages?" And it was almost funny because you know how people say, "I'm not going to engage," and then the other person forces engagement anyway? My phone buzzed right then, like it was trying to keep up with the chaos. Unknown number. Another voicemail. I didn't even have to listen to know what it was. More pressure, more guilt, more family first. Like that phrase is a magical spell that turns theft into love. I looked at Monroe and said, "If I play it, will it help?" And she said, "Yes." And that was the moment I realized this whole day had turned into a documentary, and my parents were the villains who didn't know they were being filmed. I played the second voicemail, and this time it was my mother, and her voice was sweet in that syrupy way that makes your skin crawl because you can hear the poison under the sugar. "Honey," she said, "stop embarrassing us. People are watching. Come home, and we'll talk like adults." Like adults. From the woman who faxed a fake doctor letter to a bank. Vanessa mouthed unbelievable, but didn't say it out loud.
She didn't need to.
Monroe asked, "Do you have any family members in town who might get pulled into this?" And I laughed once, sharp, without humor, because of course they would. That's the next move in every family control playbook. If you can't win with facts, you win with the crowd. You call cousins. You call church friends. You call anyone who still believes parents are automatically saints and children are automatically dramatic. I said, "They'll call everybody." And Vanessa said, "Then we stay ahead of it." She slid a new sheet across the desk, and it wasn't a form this time, it was a checklist, and she spoke like she was giving me a survival plan. "Step 1, new email address for all banking communication," she said. "Step 2, change every password from a device they've never touched. Step 3, freeze your credit. Step 4, put a pin on your phone carrier account. Step 5, lock down your medical portals." And while she said it, Adrian was already typing to implement the bank side of the same strategy. New device tokens, passphrase enforcement, no mailing change without in-person verification, no POA acceptance without trust compliance review, and the big one, the one that made me exhale like I'd been holding my breath for years, he added a permanent note. Any attempt by Daniel or Marlene Carter to access this account triggers immediate legal escalation. I wanted to feel relieved. I did not. Because the moment you finally block someone like that, they don't suddenly turn into decent people. They just look for a different door. Hayes asked me, "Where do you work?" And I told him, and he nodded and said, "Your parents may try to contact your employer." Monroe added, "They might call claiming you're unstable. It's a tactic to isolate you." Vanessa said, "Do you have HR contact info?" And I gave it, and Adrian printed an official bank letter right there with the fraud case number, stating I was physically present at the branch, alert and oriented, disputing the POA, and that the account was under investigation with video evidence of impersonation. That sentence, alert and oriented, sounds cold, but it's a shield. It's the difference between, she says, and documented. And I need you to hear the educational piece buried inside this mess. If someone ever tries to label you incompetent to steal your money, your calm and your documentation become your armor. Not your tears, not your arguments, your paper. Vanessa asked, "Do you have a trusted friend who can be with you tonight?" And I almost said no out of pride, because I'm stubborn, and then I remembered Monroe's question earlier. "Do you think your parents will stop?" And my answer was no. They escalate when they lose control, so I said, yes. I can call someone, and Monroe nodded like that was the correct move. Hayes stepped out briefly to coordinate with dispatch about the welfare check, and while he was out, Adrian leaned in and said, "There's something else you should see." And when a banker says that, you don't feel curiosity, you feel dread. He pulled up a deeper log, the kind of back-end screen customers never see, and he said, when the POA packet was submitted yesterday, the employee made a note about additional documents. He clicked and up popped an image of a notary seal, a notary name, and a commission number. Vanessa pointed at it. "We verify independently," she said, "not by calling any number on the paper." Then Monroe said, "Because if it's a fake notary, the contact number will route to your parents." Vanessa nodded. "Exactly," she said, and she turned to me and asked, "Do your parents know any notaries personally?" I thought of my mother's office network, her habit of collecting professionals like tools, and I said, "Probably." And Vanessa's mouth tightened. "Then we treat everything as compromised until verified," she said. Adrian clicked again and showed me the scan of my ID they used yesterday, that older version, and he said, "This was accepted because it matched the name and photo, even though it's outdated." Vanessa's tone went sharp. "We're filing an internal employee review," she said. "Not to blame, but to understand the gap. I didn't want revenge against a bank employee. I wanted my parents stopped. But it did matter because that's how these things happen. Not because systems are evil, but because people assume parents equals trustworthy. That assumption is the crack criminals love." Then Hayes came back in, and his face told me the day wasn't done. "Your parents requested the welfare check, and they're insisting you're a danger to yourself," he said. "Dispatch is sending officers to your apartment anyway, protocol." My stomach clenched. Not because I was afraid of police, but because I knew what the record could become if one bored officer wrote one lazy line like, "Subject appeared distressed." Vanessa leaned forward and said, "We can give you documentation to show responding officers," and she handed me the bank letter and the fraud case number and told me to keep it on top of everything, not tucked away. Monroe said, "When they arrive, be polite, say you're fine. Show them this, and ask them to document that you're disputing identity fraud and financial exploitation." Hayes added, "And do not let your parents control the interaction. If they show up, tell officers you want them removed." That last part hit me because it made something very clear. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. This was safety planning. Then, like the universe wanted to prove every point at once, Adrian's screen flashed with an inbound call log. He frowned. "It's the trust services line," he said, and Vanessa said, "Put it on speaker." A new voice came through, calm, corporate, the sound of someone who has read thousands of fraud cases and only gets emotional about liability. "This is Trust Protection," the woman said. "We received an inquiry from a third party claiming to be an agent under POA, requesting expedited verification." Vanessa didn't blink. "The POA is disputed," she said. "We have video of impersonation. The beneficiary is in branch and law enforcement is present." There was a pause, and then the voice said, "Understood. We are locking the account under enhanced protection and routing all requests through legal." Vanessa looked at me as if to say, "You're not alone in this anymore," and it almost made me cry, but I didn't, because my tears didn't belong to my parents today. My rage did. Monroe asked me, "Do you want to pursue charges?" And here's where I want you, watching, to think about your own line in the sand. Because a lot of people, especially in our culture, get taught that holding family accountable is wrong, even when family is committing felonies. That belief is exactly what people like my parents rely on. I said, "Yes," and my voice didn't shake. I want it documented and pursued. Hayes nodded like he respected the clarity. "Okay," he said. "Then we need to formalize your statement, and we need to preserve every digital artifact." Monroe photographed my phone screen again, the texts, the voicemails, the timestamps, and she told me not to block them yet because sometimes their messages become the strongest proof of intent. That felt gross, like leaving a door open for poison, but I understood why. Vanessa stepped out and returned with another person, older, sharper, dressed like legal trouble. "This is Martin Shaw," she said. "Regional security and compliance."
Martin didn't do small talk.
He looked at me and said, "Ms. Lane, your parents attempted to drain your trust. They attempted to redirect your address. They attempted to alter your two-factor. They used a forged capacity letter. This is a coordinated attempt at financial exploitation." Hearing it stacked like that made my stomach flip, because when you list the steps, you can see the planning. And then Martin said something that made the entire room go still. "We ran the household account your father opened," he said. "There's an additional authorized user listed besides your parents." Monroe's pen paused. "Who?" she asked. Martin looked at the screen and said, "Paige Carter. My sister. The same sister who tried to deny the tattoo. The same sister whose laptop tag showed up in the metadata. So now it wasn't just my parents. It was a family project. A group assignment in Betrayal." I felt this hot, sick laugh rise in my chest, and I swallowed it down because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break, even if they weren't in the room. Hayes said, "That ties her directly." And Monroe nodded and said, "We'll request a warrant for additional records if needed." And then my phone buzzed again. And this time it was a notification from my building's front desk app. "Visitor request. Daniel Carter, my father, requesting access." My blood went cold. Vanessa stared at the notification and then at me. "How did he know where you live?" she asked, and I didn't even have to think because the answer tasted like rust. "He already had it," I said. "And he thinks he owns it." Hayes's expression hardened. "We're going with you," he said, and Monroe stood up like the day had shifted from bank fraud to physical boundary enforcement. And as we walked out of that glass office into the lobby, the bank's soft lighting suddenly felt like a spotlight, and I realized the next scene wasn't going to be about stopping a transfer. It was going to be about stopping them from rewriting my life in real time at my own front door. We walked out of that glass office like we were leaving a scene that used to be private and now belonged to documentation, and the bank lobby felt different. Not softer, not safer, more like a set where everyone pretends not to look while they absolutely look. Vanessa stayed behind to coordinate legal and preserve the footage. Martin, the compliance guy, kept his phone in his hand like it was a weapon made of email threads, and Officer Hayes and Officer Monroe moved with that calm, practice pace that tells you they're already calculating the next 10 minutes. I kept my face neutral and my step steady, because if you've ever been in a family war, you learn early that your body language becomes part of the story people tell about you. Outside, Chicago air hit my face cold and sharp, and for 1 second I thought, okay, we're leaving, we're going to my apartment, we're going to breathe, and then my phone buzzed again like it was laughing at me for thinking this was linear. It wasn't my parents this time. It was a notification from Harborline's security portal, a new login attempt flagged, and beneath it, a small line that made my stomach do that slow turn. Location unknown, device unrecognized. Martin glanced at it and said, "They're trying to brute the recovery path," and Monroe said, "Keep that screenshot too." and I realized I was collecting screenshots the way people collect oxygen in a burning room. Hayes asked, "Do you have your own car?" And I said yes, and then he said, "We're not going to your building blind." And he radioed in the welfare check update so that the responding officers would know the context, because the biggest risk with welfare checks is not the check, it's the narrative. If your parents can get an officer to write one lazy sentence like "subject appear distressed," they will use that sentence like a crowbar for years. We moved toward my car, and I kept scanning the street like an idiot, because once you suspect your family is capable of impersonation and forgery, you start suspecting everything, like betrayal rewires your nervous system. Monroe noticed and said, "You're not paranoid. You're adjusting to new data." And I almost laughed because it was the most validating thing anyone had said to me all day. Not sentimental, just accurate. We drove to my apartment with Hayes in the passenger seat and Monroe behind me, and yes, it felt ridiculous and surreal to have police riding along because my parents couldn't accept no. But then I remembered my building notification, my father requesting access. That wasn't love. That was a boundary test. My building was one of those mid-rise places with a front desk, cameras, key fobs, and polite rules that assume the biggest threat is a package thief, not your own mother faxing a fake capacity letter. We pulled up, and before I even turned the engine off, my phone pinged again, and this time it was a voicemail transcription from my father, and I didn't play it yet. I just read the first line on the screen. "Open the door. We can do this the easy way." Hayes muttered, "That's a threat," and Monroe said, "It's coercion," and she looked at me and asked, "Do you want them trespassed from your building too?" And I said, "Yes," because I was done pretending my life was a family discussion when it was actually a takeover attempt. We walked in, and the front desk guy, a young man with tired eyes, looked up like he was about to greet me normally, and then saw the uniforms, and his whole posture changed. "Everything okay?" he asked, and I said, "My parents are trying to access my unit without permission," and Hayes stepped in smoothly. "Do you have any record of a visitor request from Daniel Carter?" And the desk guy nodded, nervous, and said, "He requested access about 10 minutes ago," and then he hesitated like he didn't want to be the bad guy. "He said he was family," the guy added, and Monroe's expression tightened. "Family is not authorization," she said. And there it was, the sentence I wish every receptionist in America had tattooed on their brain. The desk guy pulled up the log, and I watched the screen reflect on his face, and I saw my father's name sitting there like a claim. Hayes asked, "Did you let him in?" And the desk guy shook his head fast.
No.
"I told him I needed approval," he said. He got angry. I asked, "Is he still here?" And the desk guy said, "He and a woman were outside for a bit. Then they left, but they said they'd be back," and my stomach clenched. Of course they said they'd be back. People like this treat buildings like obstacles, not boundaries. Monroe asked to see the lobby camera feed, and the desk guy pulled it up, and there they were again in grainy video, my father leaning in toward the desk, my mother beside him, and my sister hovering slightly behind like she was the backup plan. My father's mouth moved fast, hands gesturing in that familiar way he uses when he's selling a story. Hayes asked the desk guy, "Did he present any paperwork?" And the guy said, he waved his phone and said he had power of attorney, and Monroe said, for a building, like she couldn't believe the stupidity, and then she looked at me and said, "They're trying to normalize the lie everywhere," and that hit me hard because it was true. They weren't just trying to steal money. They were trying to build a world where their version of reality was accepted by strangers as default. That's how control works. It doesn't just live at home, it spreads. Hayes asked the desk guy to flag my unit so no visitor access would be granted without a password, and I picked a passphrase right there on the spot. Something meaningless to outsiders but sharp to me, and the desk guy typed it in like it was the easiest solution in the world, which made me angry in a new way, because if it was this easy to add protections, why did we wait until disaster? We took the elevator up, and every floor ding felt like a countdown. Monroe stood slightly behind me, not crowding, just covering, and Hayes said, "When we get to your door, check for anything unusual." And my brain flashed through all the dramatic fears people have: broken locks, forced entry, and then I remembered my parents didn't operate like burglars. They operate like lawyers. They don't kick doors. They pick systems.
My door was fine.
No scratches. No tampering. But my hallway camera light was on, meaning it had recorded recent motion. I opened my phone app and pulled the clip, and there was my father standing outside my unit, face close to the camera, smiling like he was filming a message to prove he belonged there. Then he leaned in and said something, and the audio caught it faintly. "Open up. I know you're in there." My skin went cold. Hayes said, "Save that." And Monroe said, "That's intimidation." And we went inside. The moment the door shut, the world should have felt smaller and safer. But it didn't, because I knew my parents weren't trying to get in to hug me. They were trying to get in to control the next chapter. Hayes asked me to sit, to slow down, to breathe, and then he said, "2 officers are assigned to the welfare check call. They might arrive here." And I said, "Good," because I wanted them to see me calm in my own home, to document that I was fine, to disrupt my parents' plan to turn me into a headline. Monroe stood near the window and glanced down, scanning the street like she was waiting for a car to pull up. I went to my desk and opened my laptop because I wasn't going to rely on my phone alone, and I started backing up everything. The bank emails, the screenshots, the voicemail audio files, the text threats, the building footage. Hayes watched me and said, "That's smart." And then he added, "Most people don't think to preserve digital evidence until it's gone." And I looked at him and said, "I'm not most people today." And he nodded like he respected the way anger can sharpen you. Then the buzzer downstairs rang. One long tone. My heart jumped, and Monroe's posture shifted instantly.
"That's them," she said.
The front desk called my phone. "Your parents are back," the desk guy said, voice tense. "They're demanding access. They're saying you're unstable, and they're here for your safety." I closed my eyes for 1 second and let myself feel the rage fully, hot and clean, because the hypocrisy was almost artistic. They tried to steal my trust, got caught, and now they were pivoting to the oldest trick in the book: paint me as unwell so any resistance becomes proof. Hayes took my phone gently, like he didn't want my voice on the line, and said to the desk guy, "This is Officer Hayes. Do not grant access.
Keep them in the lobby."
We are coming down." We rode the elevator back down, and I felt like I was walking into a courtroom where my parents had rehearsed and I hadn't. Except this time I had uniforms beside me, and I had footage, and I had timestamps. The lobby doors opened, and I saw them immediately. My father stood squared up near the desk, my mother beside him with that worried face she wears like makeup, and my sister, Paige, was holding her phone again, ready to record because in their mind, the story is always about optics. My father's voice was loud enough to recruit witnesses. "There she is," he said, pointing like I was a runaway child, not an adult. "Officer, she's not well. She's paranoid. She thinks we're stealing. She's been spiraling." Monroe stepped forward and said, "Sir, stop." And my father's face twisted, offended, because how dare anyone tell him to stop? My mother turned her eyes on me and did the softest, cruelest thing. "Honey," she said, loud enough for the lobby to hear, "let us help you." And that right there, that sentence, is where I want you watching to make your moral call, because some people will hear "let us help you" and think love, and some people will hear it and think trap. Which one are you? Because what happened next made it very clear what it really meant when my sister lifted her phone and said, "We just want the truth on record." And Hayes replied, calm as ice, "Good, because we have the truth on record too." And he looked at the desk guy and said, "Pull up the lobby footage from today." And my father's eyes flicked for half a second. Just one. toward the camera in the corner, like he suddenly remembered the building was also a witness. And in that tiny flicker I saw it not fear, not guilt, but calculation. Like he was already figuring out how to twist the next 10 seconds into another lie. And my mother stepped closer, voice turning sharper. "You're humiliating us," she hissed, and I leaned in and said, low enough that only she could hear, "You humiliated yourselves the moment you forged my life." And her eyes flashed with something I rarely saw in her, panic, because she could feel control slipping. And then my phone buzzed again with a new notification that made Monroe's face change the second she read it. An alert from Harborline, subject line visible on my lock screen. Urgent. Legal document received, and I swear the timing was too perfect because it meant while my parents were down here performing concern, they had someone else pushing paperwork through another channel, and Hayes said, "We need to see that email right now." And my father's voice rose as if he knew exactly what it was without knowing. "You're making a mistake," he shouted. "You're going to regret this." And Monroe stepped between us and said, "Back up," and the desk guy's hands shook as he clicked through footage, and I opened the bank email with my thumb like I was opening a trapdoor, and the first line on the screen made my stomach drop straight through the floor. Notice of emergency petition filed. The words on my lock screen looked fake for a second, like one of those scam emails that tries to scare seniors into clicking a link, except this one had the bank's verified sender line and the case number in the subject, which meant it wasn't a scam. It was my parents turning paperwork into a weapon in real time. Notice of emergency petition filed. Hayes held his hand out, not grabbing my phone, just asking, and I handed it to him because at that point my privacy wasn't more important than my survival. He read it fast, then slower, then he swore under his breath like he hated that this was allowed to exist. "They're filing for emergency guardianship," he said, and the lobby around us kept moving like normal. Residents coming in with groceries, a delivery guy checking his phone, and my family standing there acting like concerned saints while trying to legally cage me. Monroe turned to my father and said flat, "Sir, step back." My father didn't step back. He stepped forward, chin lifted, voice louder, because volume is how he manufactures authority. "See," he said to the lobby like he was addressing a jury. "She's not stable. She's being manipulated by strangers. We're trying to help." And right then I realized something that made my skin crawl. This wasn't just about winning, it was about making sure witnesses remembered me as the problem. My mother turned her face into that practice RO and said, "Honey, please, you're scaring people." And I almost laughed because I wasn't the one forging documents.
Monroe didn't bite.
She looked at my mother and said, "Ma'am, you threatened guardianship in writing. We have it documented." My mother's eyes flicked, and for half a second her mask cracked. Then she recovered and did what she always does, the thing that makes people doubt their own senses. "She's twisting everything," she said softly. "She's been spiraling. We've tried to get her help." My sister Paige held her phone up higher, and I saw the reflection of her screen, the red recording, and it hit me that she wasn't recording to protect anyone. She was recording to edit a narrative later. Hayes didn't argue with them. He didn't debate mental health. He turned back to the evidence because evidence is the only language that doesn't get gaslit. He handed my phone to Monroe and said, "Call the bank's fraud contact now. Get the details of that petition. We need timestamps and who filed." Monroe stepped slightly aside, dialed, and her tone changed into pure procedure, the kind of voice that makes liars nervous. Meanwhile, Hayes looked at the front desk attendant and said, "Pull up the lobby footage from today.
Right now."
We need to preserve their statements and behavior." The desk guy's hands shook as he clicked, and my father saw the screen angle, and his eyes flicked toward it again, that tiny calculation, and he tried to pivot. "We're leaving," he said abruptly, like he could control when the record starts and stops. Hayes said, "No, you're not," in the same calm tone you use when you tell a toddler they can't run into traffic. You're being identified in connection with an active fraud investigation, and now an emergency petition filed against this resident. My father's face twisted. You can't hold me, he snapped. Hayes didn't argue. He just said, Sir, you can either cooperate here quietly, or we do it the hard way. And my mother, because she's smarter than my father in public, touched his arm and whispered, Stop. But it wasn't concern, it was strategy. She didn't want him to create a charge that would complicate their petition story. Then Monroe came back on speaker with the bank's trust protection rep, and the rep confirmed what I already knew in my bones. We received a legal notice of an emergency petition filed by third parties claiming the beneficiary is incapacitated, the rep said. They requested expedited release of records and reinstatement of POA authority. Hayes asked, When was it filed? The rep answered, Within the last hour. Within the last hour. Let that sink in. While my parents were at the bank getting trespassed, while they were driving to my building, while they were standing in my lobby calling me unstable, they were also filing legal paperwork to make it official. That's not panic. That's coordination. Monroe asked, Is there a hearing scheduled? And the rep said, We don't have a hearing date yet, but emergency petitions can trigger temporary orders, depending on jurisdiction. Hayes turned to me and said, We need your attorney, and I said, I don't have one. And that's when Vanessa's name popped in my head like a lifeline, because in one day she'd done more for me than my parents had done in years. I said, The branch manager has legal, and Monroe nodded and said, Good. We get the bank legal team to generate a sworn statement, and we get you connected to counsel now. And then Hayes did something that changed the whole dynamic. He stopped treating my parents like a family and started treating them like suspects. He looked at my father and said, Your claim is she's incapacitated. Yet you're here yelling in a public lobby, coordinating filming, and attempting to gain access to her residence. Explain that. My father's mouth opened, closed, opened again, and then he did the obvious. He attacked my character. She's unstable, he repeated, like he could hypnotize the world with repetition. She's paranoid. She thinks everyone is against her. Hayes nodded slowly, like he was letting my father talk himself into a corner. Okay, he said. Then why did you submit a POA yesterday using an impersonator with a wrist tattoo that matches your daughter Paige? My sister's head snapped. That's not me, she said too fast. And right then, because the universe loves receipts, the front desk guy rewound the lobby footage from earlier, the moment my father walked in demanding access, the moment my mother said I was paranoid, the moment Paige raised her phone to record. The desk guy's screen played it back silently, but the body language was loud. My father looming, my mother directing, Paige filming. Hayes said, We are preserving this. Then he turned to Paige and said, Roll your sleeve up. Paige scoffed. No, she snapped. My mother stepped in. She doesn't have to do anything. And Monroe's voice cut through like a blade. Ma'am, you are not the authority here, she said. And you don't get to manage this situation. My father tried another pivot. We have paperwork, he insisted. We have a capacity letter. Hayes said, The bank traced the fax header to your wife's office number. And my mother's face twitched. That twitch was tiny, but it was real, and it was the first time I saw her realize the system might not be charmed. Paige's phone was still recording, and I thought, fine, record this too. Record the part where the mask falls. Hayes said, You filed an emergency petition within the last hour. That's retaliation in the middle of an active fraud report. My father raised his voice again. No, it's protection. And I stepped forward and said, loud enough for the lobby and the cameras to hear, If you were protecting me, you wouldn't need an impersonator. My mother's eyes flashed at me like she wanted to slap me with her stare, but She forced her voice into sweetness. "Honey," she said, "you don't understand what you signed." And that sentence hit like a memory because it was the same thing she used to say when I was younger, and she wanted to override my decisions. "You don't understand." Translation: you don't get to decide. Hayes looked at her and said, "She understands enough to file a fraud dispute, present work logs, preserve messages, and cooperate with law enforcement. That is competency." Competency. That word is everything in a guardianship fight. Monroe came back to me and said, "We need you to make 2 phone calls right now." And she held my phone out. One to the bank manager. One to a lawyer. "If you don't have one, we get a referral right now." I nodded and my fingers were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, because my parents had dragged me into the kind of legal trap that ruins people quietly. I called Vanessa first because she was still in incident mode at the branch. She answered immediately, like she'd been waiting for this. "They filed it, didn't they?" she said. "Yes," I replied. "Emergency petition." Vanessa's voice went colder. "Okay," she said. "Our legal team is drafting an affidavit now. Fraud case number, video evidence, metadata evidence, attempted address change, attempted 2-factor change, and the trespass incident. We'll send it to you and to law enforcement." Monroe leaned in and said, "Also include your statement that she was in branch, alert and oriented." And Vanessa said, "Already in the draft." Then Hayes asked the question that mattered for the next hour. "Are they still trying to access the trust?" Vanessa said, "They're calling around. We're blocking. And trust compliance has placed enhanced protection." Hayes nodded, then looked at my parents and said, "You are being trespassed from this building. Leave now." My father's face twisted into fury, but my mother grabbed his arm again, whispering, because she knew pushing too hard in front of officers would hurt their petition narrative. Paige lowered her phone for the first time, and in that tiny movement, I saw what she really was. Not bold, not brave, just comfortable when she thought she couldn't be held accountable. Hayes watched them back toward the door, and the whole time my mother kept saying, "We love you," like love is a permit. Then they stepped outside, and the lobby got quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was the hush before the next wave. Monroe looked at me and said, "Now we race them." "Race them to what?" I asked. And she said, "To court, to counsel, and to a record that makes their emergency petition collapse the moment it lands." And as she said that, my phone pinged with a new notification from a number I didn't recognize, but the message preview made my blood go cold. "We already spoke to a judge." The message preview on my screen said, "We already spoke to a judge," and it was from an unknown number, which told me everything I needed to know about the kind of people my parents had decided to become. Bold in private, slippery in public, and always trying to create the illusion that authority is already on their side, so you'll surrender without a fight. Monroe didn't even blink when she read it. She just said, "Screenshot, don't respond," and Hayes added, "That's intimidation dressed up as process." And right there, standing in my building lobby with my neighbors pretending not to stare, I felt something click into place in my head like a lock. My parents weren't trying to help me. They were trying to win a race, and the finish line was my signature, my silence, or a court order with my name on it. Monroe told me to sit at the small lobby table near the desk because cameras could see it clearly, and she said, "We're going to build a clean record in real time." Hayes radioed dispatch and requested that any welfare check notes be attached to the fraud investigation, because the trick with welfare checks is they create a separate file that abusers later treat like a trophy, and I was not letting my parents collect another trophy with my sanity on it. The front desk attendant pulled up the building's incident report form and started typing while Hayes spoke slowly and clearly. Resident denied access to family members. Family members attempted entry. Family members claimed POA authority. Family members were advised to leave. Police present. And hearing it stated like that was oddly calming because it turned chaos into facts. Monroe dialed Vanessa again and put her on speaker, and Vanessa's voice came through crisp and focused, like she was standing in a war room made of fluorescent lighting and bank policy. "We have our affidavit drafted," she said. "It includes the fraud case number, the attempted $461,000 transfer scheduled for noon, the 2 test transfers, the impersonation footage, the scanned POA, the notary details, the capacity letter, the fax header trace, and the device metadata showing the document was created from a consumer laptop profile." Hayes asked, "Can you send it now?" Vanessa said, "I'm sending it to the email the beneficiary just created, and I'm also sending it to our legal escalation contact for court liaison." Monroe nodded and looked at me. "Do you have a printer?" And I said no, and she said, "Then we're going digital, and we're going fast." Now here's where the how matters, because people always say, "Get a lawyer." Like you can snap your fingers and a lawyer appears on your couch with a cape. But the real world is phones and hold times and panic. So Monroe did something smart. She called the court clerk's office while I sat there and listened to her speak the way only someone with authority can. She didn't say, "My parents are mean." She said, "There is an active bank fraud investigation with law enforcement present, and we have evidence the petitioners attempted financial exploitation using forged documents and an impersonator. We need instructions for submitting counter-evidence to the judge or duty magistrate handling emergency filings." And you could almost hear the clerk's brain shift into seriousness. Monroe got an email address for emergency filings and a reference number for the petition. Hayes leaned in and said, "We're submitting a response immediately. And I want you to understand what this moment felt like. Not relief, not victory, but the weird sensation of outrunning your own family with paper. Like the relationship is dead, and the only thing alive is procedure." Vanessa's affidavit hit my inbox, and I opened it, and the first page looked like a lifeline written in corporate language. Vanessa Grant, branch manager. It stated I was physically present, that I disputed the POA, that the transfer was suspended, that video showed an impersonator, and that the petitioners were the same people involved in the attempted disbursement. Hayes asked me to forward it to Monroe, and Monroe attached it to the court email with a short message that was pure steel, submitting evidence to be considered before any temporary order is entered. Petition appears retaliatory and connected to active financial exploitation investigation. She attached the screenshots of my mother's thread about guardianship, my father's family first admission, the building visitor request, the lobby camera stills, and the voicemail transcripts. Then Hayes said, "Now we lock down your life like it's a bank account." And he wasn't joking. He had me open my phone carrier app and add a security PIN. He had me change my email password and enable two-factor with a device they've never touched. He told me to freeze my credit with the 3 bureaus. Monroe told me to contact my primary care office and lock down medical portal access, because if your parents can produce a fake capacity letter once, they will try again, and it's easier to stop them when your own real providers know you're being targeted. And while we were doing all of that, my phone buzzed again, and this time it was Paige, my sister, texting me like nothing had happened, like we were still a normal family that just needed better communication. "Can we talk? Dad is losing it. You're making this worse." I stared at the words, and I felt the rage rise, because what do you mean I'm making it worse? I didn't forge anything. I didn't drag a masked impersonator into a bank. I didn't try to reroute my address. I didn't threaten guardianship. But the manipulation was so clean it almost impressed me, like she wanted me to take responsibility for the consequences of her actions. Monroe said, "Do not argue. If you respond at all, respond with one sentence that preserves intent," and she helped me craft it. "Do not contact me. Further messages will be provided to law enforcement." I sent it, And I felt this tiny little shift inside me, like my spine got straighter because boundaries feel wrong when you were raised to be controlled. Then Hayes got a call and stepped aside, listened, and came back with a face that told me the next domino had fallen. "The bank is filing a formal criminal referral," he said. And the court clerk acknowledged receipt of our evidence. Monroe added, "That doesn't guarantee they won't issue something temporary, but it makes it much harder for them to pretend this is pure concern." And right then, I got another email from Vanessa. Trust protection case opened. It included a new case number and a line that made my chest loosen. No POA will be accepted without in-person verification and independent counsel confirmation. That sentence is boring to read, but if you've ever been trapped under someone else's control, it's like hearing a door lock from the inside. Now, I'm going to give you the payoff you've probably been waiting for because I know what you're thinking. Did Paige actually sit in that chair at the bank wearing the mask? Did the system ever officially catch her? Here's what happened next, and it's why I say this was never just my parents. Later that afternoon, Monroe took me to the precinct to finalize the report because if you want protection, you don't half file, you file clean. While we were there, a detective called the bank security team and requested the full footage chain and the device metadata report from Trust Compliance. The detective didn't ask, "Do you think it's your sister?" He asked, "Who is the person in the footage and can we match identifiers?" And then the bank did what banks do when liability is on the table. They got precise. They pulled the still of the wrist tattoo. They pulled the in-branch appointment record. They pulled the document author tag from the POA file metadata. They pulled the account opening record for the so-called household expenses account. And yes, Paige's name was on it as an authorized user. And then the detective did the simplest thing that turned my stomach and also validated every second of my instinct. He compared Paige's public social media photos from the last year, the ones where she thought she was being cute and edgy, to the tattoo in the footage. Same placement, same shape, same little curve. It wasn't a feeling anymore. It was a match. The detective didn't announce it like a movie. He just looked at me and said, "Your sister is involved." And that was the moment the betrayal finally stopped being confusing. It wasn't that my parents suddenly lost their minds. It's that my parents had always believed they owned me, and my sister believed she was entitled to benefit from that ownership. That's the moral lesson nobody wants to say out loud because it's ugly. Sometimes the people closest to you don't love you like a person. They love you like a resource. And if you are watching this and you're older, retired, living on savings, living on a pension, living on Social Security, or sitting on a nest egg you worked your whole life for, I need you to hear me clearly. The scammer you should fear most isn't always a stranger on the phone. Sometimes it's family with a smile, a folder, and a story about protecting you. So here's what I did next, and yes, it's blunt. I cut off access. I changed every password. I froze my credit. I locked down my medical portals. I documented everything. I asked the court to reject the emergency petition based on the fraud evidence. I requested a protection order because boundaries that come with consequences are the only kind certain people respect. And I told the bank, in writing, that no future request from my parents would be considered without my attorney present. Not a conversation, not a meeting, not a family talk. Paper only. If you think that sounds cold, good. Cold is how you survive people who use warmth as a trap. Now I want your take, because this is where the comment section gets real. Did my parents cross the line the moment they locked me out, or the moment they forged the capacity letter, or the moment they tried guardianship, or the moment they showed up at my building and called me unstable in public? And if you were me, would you press charges, or would you quietly walk away and just lock everything down? Tell me what you would do and why, because I know some of you are going to say family is family, and others are going to say family is not a license, and I want to see where you land. And one more thing before you click away, because you and I both know this story isn't just about a bank account. It's about what happens after the system finally refuses them access. In the next video, I'm telling you what happened when my parents realized they couldn't control my money anymore, and they tried to control my reputation instead, because the smear campaign they launched was nastier than the fraud. And if you've ever dealt with a family that cares more about image than truth, you're going to recognize every move they make.